Hey, what's good? We're waiting for Instagram to come up right now, as usual. There we go. There we go. People, Toxic Tuesdays live. I don't know if that's cool. If that's a cool name or not. Let's turn this light on. Whoa. Is that better? All right. So we got Instagram going, right? Do we? I think now we got Instagram going. There we go. What up? What up? What up, G? Okay, so what did I say I was going to talk about today on that thing? We're going to do micro minks, muskrats, XL minks, tips and tricks. What else? Word. I'm glad you got the bait. Now to go smoke something on it. Hall show. The Hall show in Long Beach is happening. I don't know how big it is, but Friday I'll probably be there. I don't know if I'll be back Saturday, but it looks like Friday for now. It's going to go help iRod out, try to move some product, some sniper swims and some toxic swims. And then the PCS show will be here before you know it in the beginning of March. So I'll be at Performance Tackle, different retailers, kind of bouncing around, working with iRod probably too, iRod Coastal, just, doing all that stuff. So that's what's coming up. Like I said before, look in retailers because soon you'll see all the baits in there. Soft plastic are coming. OMR juniors are coming. Later in this week, probably around the weekend, we're going to drop the soft plastics. I've been pouring some of them of the 5-inch bobs and the 6.5-inch like weedless style bait that we've had forever that we're finally going to drop. But right now, there's a bunch of minks loaded into the site. There's mink colored minks, a river rat mink. That's like the two that I throw. So that's why I did those. Those are like what I threw on the Delta for years. They produced, they're really good. What up? What up? And then we're going to talk about the XL mink, which was like my first big swim bait that caught me giants. Muskrat, incredible profile, I think is the key to that. The joint's cool, adds to it. The profile is the key. And then I have a couple one-offs that I'll talk about that I throw into my into the rotation of my rodent game or whatever. So first off, if you don't know, rats are like my deal. I've became a swim bait maker, so I make everything, and I've caught some giants on my bluegill baits. I started making bluegill baits, and they really took off. Rodent baits are kind of off to the side a lot of times, or it's like a novelty bait. I think people see it as like a novelty bait, but it's definitely not. So you've seen, if you haven't seen it, I have Rat Theory on YouTube. Super cool. I break stuff down years ago. I try to go into different details about that. So, my views have slightly evolved since then. But that core information definitely hasn't changed. So we'll just go right into it with this here. This is the classic. This is the micro mink. This is the micro mink that I've made all these years. I'll just pull a tail off of that one. I make these tails myself because I used to use a mag trickworm tail. And now these come with the bait. They're super kind of like stiff. Because if you ever seen rodents swim in the water, they don't have a big wiggly tail. None of that. It's not like that. Actually, they barely wiggle at all, right? The river rats, I don't know what kind of rodent it is that lives in the Delta. It wiggles. So some do. But for the most part, they move pretty sleekly through the water. Like they can swim, right? Like you got to make sure you give credit where credit's due. they're wild animals and they survive in their environment. They're not, they're not helpless creatures that fall in the water and don't know how to swim. They know how to swim right away. It's just instinct. So this is my standard one. Mine personally, I like to weight mine down. I know a lot of guys fish their rats in the upper column. I customize mine. You can do it with lead tape. You can see here I use the size 1 ST56 almost exclusively on this bait, on the micro mink. It's my favorite hook. If I could use it for an application, I do. To be honest with you, like, it's a huge hook. I bent it out because a big fish ate and it was just right. The current was going, the wrong way, and I was on the trolling motor, and it just, things happen. So even with, hooks bend, but just find your preference. I kind of like the thicker hook because it looks kind of like feet down there kicking around, and all rodents kick their feet to swim. So I weight mine heavy, or I'll keep it buoyant and pitch it. On the Delta, I would pitch it into toolies, right? But toolies, wood, all that stuff. And then it's kind of like face down, ass up, walk it in place, slowly swim it out, right? But I can do a run of heavy weighted minks. These are already weighted pretty heavy. Most people get them and are like, yo, it doesn't really wake, it cranks down. Well, it's supposed to crank down. But if you add lead tape right here, and then more right here, you only want a little bit right here, and then stack it right here, and you could get this bait to get down and really slowly float up. And then you want to walk it in place and just really creep it through the column, especially during low light hours, by trees, anything like that. And you'll be surprised at what might just absolutely rip the rod out of your hands, because the fish is going to grab it and try to kill it. So a lot of times you'll get the fish will get both hooks pinned in his mouth like that, because they grab the whole bait and they're just shaking it like a shark. So the micro mink's pretty universal. But this profile is going to get you bites all over. If there's pockets, shade pockets, pockets in toolies where you fish, wood where you could get back into it, or there's kind of like a shade pocket, even if you can't get the lure into the shade, right? If a fish can sit in there, this is a great bait to throw out next to the target, let it sit a solid amount of time. The classic, let the rings go away, like from the splash. That's a long time for somebody like me, but you want to let it sit. And then you're just going to give this thing like 3 hard cranks, and it shoots under the water, and they just smoke it. Like 3 cranks, and if they don't eat it, or 3, even a 5 cranks, then I stop it and let it just hover there. And then a lot of times when you go to move it again after a short pause, they'll just be on there. But usually pitch it out, they see it over their head, it shoots under, and they just smoke it. That's one of the best ways to get a lot of bites on this. Like, you'll get a lot of solid fish, especially in the hot months, doing that, getting it to the cover, a wind blown point, any of that, letting it sit, and then crank, and they'll come up and smoke it. I haven't caught a lot of giant fish doing that, but that's like a solid technique for getting bites all the way around, from a lot of all sizes of fish, from 1 to 6 or 7 pounds. So the micro mink, I use it like that. I crank it down, just straight, steady, through wood, through trees, through toolies. Like I said, I like to weight mine down so it floats slow, because I'm cranking it like a crankbait and banging it into stuff, the whole deal. Pause, like I do my pull, pause. So my micro mink is mainly subsurface personally. When I do fish it on top, you can fish it real slow. I do a lot of walks in places, and it seems like I get a lot of bites when it shoots under. So that's my personal main technique, and it works everywhere. It works for multiple people. So if you haven't used that kind of deal, that's a good way to get bit. So right now there's this color. You always see this because I'm a Delta guy, but this is a pretty universal color for minks and rodents, squirrels, all the different things that live around lakes. You'd be surprised how many weasels, minks, shrews. There's all kinds of rodents that live by the water, especially near creeks, trees, overhangs, berry bushes, anything like that. You're gonna get rodents, and a lot of them are this brown color. The other one I have is river rat. I don't have it right now, but that's like a off-white gray color, and that's also kind of like if they're brown, they're that. I don't really throw a lot of black. I know that it gets bit. I sell black. There's a blackout up on the site. I don't have a bunch for sale. There's one. I think this is up on the site right now. That's just a preference thing, So I've taken my micro mink. It's just a stock micro mink that I just had sitting around, and I've taken it and just shortened that lip down. So then I have this right here won't really dive. This is just like a cool little waker. It just shoots around, you know what I mean? Like walk in place, fast wiggle. So, just because I make baits doesn't mean I'm not modifying my own stuff. So this is another thing that I do like on the quick retrieve. I don't use this very often, but I do use it, because I try to stay universal with it. And then a couple of years ago, we made these. They didn't sell very well. They catch tons of fish. It's a great bait. This is the mink glide, and they sit there and they float basically. You put heavy hooks on there, and you get it to really hover going down. You know what I mean? They don't sink very much, but you get it to glide when it's walking and shooting out. This is also a great bait if they're sitting in cover and the water's super clear. I mean, rats are great when the water's super clear. For whatever reason, they'll still crush them. But this one just kind of sits on them, and barely sinks and then shoots. And it's really cool bait, especially around shade pockets. Another little niche thing. It's the micro mink body, but I just made it glide. I don't think there's very many rat glides out there. People forgot, I think. But so the micro mink does most of the work for me. Usually, if I'm really out there trying to get my bites on for rodents. But the muskrat is like, this is if you want to throw a big rat, I would say this is the way to upsize, right? Because you have this muskrat, big 2-aught hooks on it, big round bends on this one. They're pretty heavy duty when they get that big. I ripped the tail off, put it on the mink, but it's a chunky bait. It's like almost 5 ounces. Like, you see how wide it is, big profile. And what I found out is that's the key. The old one that I had was shaped kind of like this, different lip, different joint, very similar action. I added this because I made these awake. I haven't really came out with the heavy float yet on this version. I made this awake because people love waking rodents. And they do great. I mean, I've done great on this. So, but the profile proved it's the micro mink and my buddy Chris, Mad Love 2020. You see him do artwork. He does tons of artwork. He took this and overlaid clay over it and just made this gnarly rat, right? And then the first one, people are like, I mean, even this one, people are like, oh my God, bro, Caesar his baits are horrible, right? Well, I get it, but it was a cool clay carving, nothing new with lures, but it wasn't symmetrical because he just made like an art piece. So I fished that one, made it work. But then when I decided to sell it for real, I really shaped it down, made it as symmetrical as it could be, kept the little hands under there and the teeth that are kind of gnarly. But the profile was the key, right? It was this little stubby fat rat with a tail. And this is my favorite bait to wake, that short, fat. And that's why these are weighted to wake like that. Because this thing, you could really reel it with that big lip and it still stays up in the water column. It's hard to get under. And like I said, you'll see a crank down version of this. Soon it will probably almost suspend. I might even have to switch the lip up because, the lip is so significant. But this bait gets under, you know, a foot or so. But on the surface, this is my new favorite. It was always my favorite because I got such big bites. The reason I decided to keep it going, and I kept it a secret for a while, and I kept it going, is because it just kept getting big bites. It just kept getting big bites, like straight up. So now it's here. It has a modified bugle lips joint because it's awake, mainly awake, loud, cool, gurgles. As soon as we started throwing it, I had this model, then I made the new model. Said let's make this sucker wake. As soon as I started throwing it, it just crushed. So this is what I'm throwing. If you guys are a wake rat fishing guy, this is your one. I know it's big, but have faith. You know, I caught a 2 pounder or something in January on this last year. So this is the newest of the lineup, even though it's like 6 or 7 years old. But if you're into big rats, you'll get more bites on this than you will on this. Even though this is fat, you know, it's a lot fatter and it's still chunky. They're almost the same weight, but you'll just get more bites on this, and you'll still get those mega bites, like those alpha predator bites that I've talked about in like the rat theory. You know, because this might be a muskrat or whatever type deal. And when fish look up, they don't get to see the whole bait when it's waking. So that bigger presence a lot of times is needed on a wake bait. A lot of great wakes are fat, and that's the reason. When you start cranking them down, you don't get as many bites. You still get bites, but you don't get the smaller bites because the fish, I feel like, can see it better, the whole profile. So muskrats, got some of those up right now in the store. Even got a watermelon one. That thing is dope. Don't sleep on the watermelon. Muskrat, this is an awesome, cool lure. And also, you know what I like to do with this is it comes with the muskrat tail. I like to make my tails really short on my minks. I don't know if you ever noticed that, but like even this one, see, like a good rule of thumb for most rodents is to make it as long as the bait or a little bit shorter than the length of the bait. And I kind of stuck to that rule for a long time, you know, and it worked out great. But then I started shortening my tail, even this one. Now it's like barely barely longer in the front section, right? And you're not going to get that whippy, snaky tail. And personally, I hate that. It doesn't even make sense to me. But so this is what my rodents usually look like, my micro minks. And this thing is just like whop, 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 whop. It just kind of like whacks back and forth. It almost has like a rebound. And that's why see that? How it kind of just rebounds back because it's so stiff. And that's another reason I use this tail attachment. It's so it keeps it stiff and out away from the body so it doesn't swing back under and snag the treble hook every cast. If you throw rats, you know that shit's whack. We don't do none of that here. We're real deal ratters. So anyways, short tail. Even on this big boy, you know, if I'm feeling kind of spicy, I'll put it like that. And this could do like a little, especially on this guy, because it's such like a fast swimmer, you know, and this thing will just whop, whop, whop. And if you ever seen a real muskrat, that's their tail size. So when I'm throwing this, I prefer the smaller tail, even though I give you the full size, I cut it down. And I just made this up out of top ramen and super glue and then made a mold. So that's why there's not a ton of them, because there's not a lot, because it's top ramen and super glue. All right. Enough bullshitting. And so the final in the rodent suite, in the toxic rodent suite, final. Show you this bing bong right here. So XL mink. Even got a couple of those boys up in there. So XL mink. This has the full size tail on there. I'd probably even cut this off a little bit so it fit better. I didn't clean out the other tail that's glued in. This has the DRT shark hooks on it. But you could also use the 1/0 ST56, whatever you want, I prefer the ST56. These shark trebles are cool. They'll bend out though. They're not the 3X, but they're really strong. So they won't bend out automatically. I'm just saying I really like to have really strong hooks on my baits personally. 4X if I can get away with it. But these have worked out great on this bait so far, and they hang long like that. If you don't mind the lighter wire hooks, Gamakatsus and sharks and hooks that hang longer, farther away from the bait can really be great. So with this bait, all these are weighted heavy. All these are going to be weighted to kind of just cruise under the surface, right? And the tips I could give you for the XL mink. If you want to see some giant fish and get a shot at some really big mamas, if you have big rodents, and I think if you have fish that are mean enough in your lake, you know what I mean, like alpha predator mentality enough, and a lot of times big pond fish don't know any better. Like smaller impoundments, city parks, bigger golf course ponds, farm ponds, regional parks, all those places. A lot of times, there's not predatory fish or anything in there for the bass not to know any better. So even if they're not used to seeing rodents this big, it looks similar to what they've seen, and they don't know that they can't eat it, man. They in their head, they eat everything. They can eat whatever swims around them. You know what I mean? For the most part, a lot of times there's big carp and stuff like that, but they're not worried about getting eaten, right? So if you have those really predatory, mean bass in your body of water, and you want to catch some big ones, but I'll literally go multiple trips. I used to only throw this, I don't mean like only throw this for a day. I mean like for a year, like forever. I just threw this shit, just this big lure, and I literally go trips without even seeing a fish. So, is it a good idea to throw big rodents like this that crank under the surface? Only if you want to catch really big fish. I mean, that's just, it's worked everywhere I've went. So you don't need special rods. I'm not going to give it. I probably don't need to give rod recommendations. You guys know I made the rods. iRod made the rods for me, but the Genesis Sniper 7'6" and the Quirkus will both throw this bait. Keep them on deck. They'll both throw this bait, micro mink, tuned right in. It'll do the whole gamut. If I wasn't going to use iRod, the only other ones I've used are LVCs. So micro mink, medium heavy, low down custom, whether it be the custom, workshop, or the standard issue. Yep, I have all those. I've had them all. Medium heavy for the micro mink. If you'd like to crank the micro mink down, like I do, or any hard baits like that, the 8'4" standard issue low down customs is an absolute dream long boy cranking stick. That thing, I used to have them make me 8'3" models, I think. I thought 8'3", it might have been 8'4", but I used to have them make me custom over 8 foot medium heavies, and I would throw frogs and stuff on them like 10, 12 years ago. I don't remember how long ago it was, but so it's really similar to the Mandingo. Where are you talking about that? The Mandingo, Jesus. When you talked about the Christian, oh yeah, man. Well, most rodents swim under the water. So joining is medium heavy. If you need to throw the big stuff for the LDCs, you can move up to a heavy. If you want to throw the extra heavy, you can. The fish are mean as fuck. If you're going to use big game, which with the big rats, I highly recommend that you use big game. With like the XL mink and the muskrat, but especially the XL mink. And I know that sounds to some people that's crazy, but man, I'm telling you, they're so mean. A fish that's going to eat that bait is so mean and pissed off, especially because he's already fired up, and then he tries to eat it, and then you whack him in the face with million-aught treble hooks. They are fired the fuck up when they eat that thing. Even the muskrat. The muskrat, they'll just absolutely, big fish, I'm saying, will absolutely just clobber that thing. So you need a stretchy line. It'll land you more fish. A stretchy line, not CXX, not, all the stuff. I throw PF most of the time, P-line PF. Every time I've thrown braid with big rodents and a big one eats it, it straightens the hook. It doesn't matter if it's a 3X hook, anything. Braid with big rodents and you get a fish over 8 pounds, it just yoinks those hooks and it straightens out. This has happened multiple times. Hey, Xander. Good idea. Ability to 1 to 4 rod, 8 foot. And he said that you need. Get out of here. Try the standard issue 8'4" medium heavy. It's already there. It's already done. How many colors? I only have the river rat up right now and the watermelon, but the 8'4", whatever it is, medium heavy standard issue. I got one from Ben. A couple years ago, right before they dropped, you could look in my spring on my Instagram and you see me with the micro mink, literally with the gray micro mink, that he sent it down, or he sent it up there for me because I was bugging him. I've been with LDC forever, and he sent up a medium heavy. I put it to work, bonk. Same first day went out, muddy water, cranking the rat, and just long cast. It barely ate the treble. That long bend kept him pinned. I'm a short rod guy, you know what I'm saying? I designed a 7'6" swim bait rod, but cold water cranking, they breathe it in, 8'4" rod with that great tip like that standard issue has can be invaluable. So there's a iRod Air. I think the Bailey Air came out. It's like 8'3", the lighter action one. That's a really good rod too. Not for what I'm talking about. I mean, it could be. I haven't used it, right? I haven't used that one for this specific application. But also, that rod was made to throw treble hook baits. So the iRod, the new iRod Air Bailey, I think it's the junior or whatever it is. I think it's 8'3". You might want to take a look at that one too. I need to familiarize myself with that. But I've been throwing Lowdown Customs since, like for a decade. I just have them in my closet now, and I just moonlight with them because, everything I have is iRod. I believe iRod is the best value and the best rod you could get. Like, I wouldn't even pay for a more expensive rod because I don't see any other features that I would care about above the Air series. Like I buy my rods to fish, and they're amazing. All of them are amazing. So, and it's Matt Newman. It's not like some corporation. So definitely iRod guy. But if I can recommend any other stuff for these baits, I can only recommend LDC because it's all I've used. So medium heavy micro mink, heavy or extra heavy for the bigger baits. Your choice. They're like 5-6 ounces. So if you prefer a little more bend in your rod, it's going to you'll be more tired at the end of the day throwing a 5-ounce bait on a heavy. because the rod flexes a little bit more. But if you're using fluorocarbon or something, you might want to go with the lighter action, or you could just go with the extra heavy. Workshop is the one I've used. I don't have the extra heavy standard issue, but the extra heavy Workshop 8-footer is just fine. So is the heavy. That's how I rock and roll. So I guess that's been like a half hour. So recommended rod, Sniper Swim. Besides that, I could say the ones that, the LDCs. So that's what I can give you advice on that. But Sniper Swim's made for this shit. The 7'6", everything is what you need for throwing the rat, whipping it into cover. Where to throw all of them? Where rats live. Rocks, trees, docks, any houses, regional parks where there's a trash can, by a road, anywhere there's a road that goes by, there's a restaurant on the shore, anywhere that there could be food that'll attract them, or creeks. So if you're not by any of those things and you're in the mountains or something, anywhere a creek comes down or a holler or whatever comes down into the lake, you're going to get aquatic rodents that live in that area. Even if they don't live anywhere else, they're going to live in that area by the creek. So when you go into that cove, that's where you want to throw the rodent. When to throw them? All year. Right now, if I'm fishing on the Delta, when I was on the Delta, I would weight this down to suspend, and I would crank it down the riprap and just really slow. And I caught them down into like 46-degree water. So you don't get a lot of bites, but 3-pounders are a good bite on the Delta in the winter. It used to be. It looks like the weights are crushing right now, but all year, especially the spring, you'll just get absolute megas to go on those things. And then in the summer, as it gets weedy, it gets a lot harder to crank down. It still works great, but I am using a little bit more of a shallow presentation. It's not weighted so heavy, so it stays up above the cover. But besides that, maybe that helps you steer. Are you going to post the live to the reels? I don't know why it's not going to the reels, but the live is on my Facebook and on YouTube. You can go on my YouTube if you haven't went on there. All these lives I've been doing, you can just sign on to YouTube and go to my live, and everyone is saved on there. So you'll be able to save these here. I'll figure out how to post it to Instagram, but I've just been busy doing a million things, and that's not one of them that I've got done. So we'll figure it out, but you can find them all cataloged. Plus, check out the YouTube channel. The YouTube channel is cool if you haven't. I know, Matt, you probably have, but I'm trying to get people to go over to YouTube because you're going to be seeing. I'm going to have an Uncle Bing Bong soon. Restart that up. We're going to keep it going, but I'm going to do it live, and I'm going to have a guest on here for the Uncle Bing Bong, and we're going to give them the fifth degree about whatever we decide to give them fifth degree is. So if you want to be on Uncle Bing Bong, holler at me. Maybe it'll work. Maybe I'll be like, nah, man. No. I don't know. Or give me some ideas if somebody wants to talk some fishing and 2025. What's cool, what's not, Talk some hype stuff. But so keep an eye on YouTube because I'm really going to be focusing on that, as I'll have a lot of content coming out from my adventures here in my new home. So thanks for stopping by to this live, and maybe I helped you learn a little bit about some rodents. Check out the site. Go check out Rat Theory, or send me an email or a DM or anything and ask me a question.